Welcome to Get Serious, giving you all a more tactical update on our approach to this larger Louisiana deal that we've been working on. To recap, it's a roughly 32-acre piece that we subdivided into 3 child parcels. Did a whole bunch of value add to make them turnkey for residential uses, super high quality properties. It's just the market has been very tough over the last couple months here. Really, since we had listed it, pretty much the market just shut off, and it's starting to turn back on a bit here. Starting to get a couple of showings here. I've thoroughly reviewed the market, chat with the broker all the time, and I still think we're very well positioned from a underlying value standpoint and where we're priced at. It's just nothing is really moving at the moment, with a couple of exceptions here. And again, generally my approach would be trying to cut prices. Is that that's usually one of the most helpful, if not the most helpful trigger for a lot of areas. But there's already a lot of precedent within that market that you're price cutting into a vacuum, which is just never that helpful to do if the buyers aren't there. So kind of be patient and wait out the anticipated rebound in the market eventually here. Again, we're starting to see some more green shoots. But in the meantime, have to explore every possible avenue to stir up some buyers. And so I believe I had recorded within the past few weeks, we did a targeted, very tactical postcard campaign. Heavily used AI to both assist within that postcard creation process as well as the targeting setup to go after recent acreage buyers in the nearby areas. Some of the neighbors to the property, especially ones that owned a little bit larger properties, as well as some of the local builders in the area as well, particularly for more custom or luxury homes. That our parcels would be a good fit for. And then we prepped roughly 10% of that list of like the highest quality leads to actually cold call and cold text and just, kind of put the word out. Hey, we've got these properties, any type of interest that you might have in them. So again, we heavily utilized AI to like set up a possible script here. Again, not really for like, hey, a discount, we're trying to move this property. That's generally been the MO for neighbor letters and reach outs for various kind of colder campaigns when you're trying to dispo property. But we have premium listings here, so it's more of just like spurring some interest, at least getting the word out. So it's like, how would we structure that? And so we set all of that up and used True People Search to skip trace the data. And even found some LLCs. Then you have to find I think we were using some governmental website from the state that helped us find, who are the managing members of each LLC that might have been buying locally. Some were better fits than others. But to me, for these campaigns, I'd prefer to be a little bit more broad, just to ensure that we get the word out properly. And I also adjusted, usually I would use my open phone number for reach outs here, but I had heard about a technique more recently where, especially if you have an iPhone, it's a huge chunk of the smartphone market. It adds a level of legitimacy if you get kind of that blue bubble text message directly to people, because then that, you're clearly not using a automated texting service. And it has to be more one-off. So for smaller campaigns like this that are more targeted, it's appropriate to do so. So I was just using my personal number to call these folks on the list as well as text them thereafter. And again, this is kind of like AI driver mentality, which I've talked about, like having to go back to the AI and like, what actually works here? Because I was looking at some of the call scripts they were suggesting, and they should be super fast, right? You want to get to the point with any type of cold call or text or voicemail, especially on that first hit, like just, qualify to see whether it's of any of interest here. And so like, for instance, the recent acreage buyer, AI was suggesting like saying, hi, first name, it's, Chris at Serious Land Capital, quick 30 seconds. So, it's immediately asking a question there. I adjusted that because I just wanted to get to the reason quick enough and I could go over it faster and still hold people's attention just to get to the point. No one was immediately hanging up on me. Like, it's a different situation compared to like talking to sellers or sell your land or whatever. Like, this is very targeted. Like, we know they bought property in the area. We're asking something very specific. So I just jumped straight to the point to get an answer more quickly. And again, didn't get any hang-ups. Pretty much every person said they weren't interested, but it's not surprising for a cold reach out campaign here. So I can't reveal the exact area that we're in, again, confidentiality reason, but it's within Louisiana. So instead, I was like, "Oh, hi," first name if I knew it. Otherwise, I'd just say, "Hi, it's Chris at Serious Land Capital. We've got 3 turnkey, roughly 10-acre land parcels outside of blank town name and blank parish. And we noted that you had recently bought acreage in the area. Just checking to see if you were still in the market for anything more like what we have." And then just leave it hanging right there. So, I could get through all of that in, sub 20 seconds. Enough to hold people's attention even on a cold call there, and then just see what they say. I would say something similar in a voicemail as well. Again, jumping straight to the point, asking, "Hey, if you have any interest, like call or text back. This is my number." And then after that, if I didn't get in touch with somebody, and it wasn't like a business phone line or one that you'd have to have an extension to reach whoever, where text message is probably not going to go through, then I also sent over a text, very similar with like, "Hi, whatever name, if I have it, it's, Chris at Serious Land Capital. And, we have, again, the 3 turnkey, roughly 10-acre parcels." When I say roughly, I'm just including kind of the tilde. Is that what you'd call it on little squiggly line on the keyboard there? So it's even shorter. It's less characters. Near, again, such and such town name, and then want a quick map plus basics, and just leave it right there. And I know for like automated texting systems, and AI was suggesting that like have like a yes/no and then reply to stop out. I didn't include that because it was from my personal line here. Could some folks really get pissed off at me for doing that? Potentially. I think, one-off texts, especially coming from an iPhone, is not overly bothersome. So I was willing to live with that. Obviously, if somebody replied back, stop, I just wouldn't text them again, but that didn't happen. So, some inherent risk I'm probably incurring there, but, I just wanted it to seem even more personal on the outreach. Got a couple responses back. Again, they weren't immediate fits there. I have more on the list today to go after and some local builders to reach out to. But, it's... Again, it's in a market like this, especially if stuff is just you're trying to dig up any lead possible. It's not the most fun to go through. Like, I have kind of like higher activation energy to like start getting into like once I can start getting into cold call mode, then I'm like, okay, just knock one out and then knock out another 2, knock out another 2, and just like you start getting into a rhythm. But it's usually like I'll usually procrastinate for a while to actually get into the process of making those calls. I don't know who like oftentimes has like a lot of energy, just excited to get into cold call mode, because it's just, it's hard to get any responses from folks. Like, not my favorite part of the business, but again, you got to do what it takes to try to stir up anything in a difficult market. So sometimes you have to do the unscalable things to scale here. And this is just part of the process. A bit more of a disappointing campaign so far. Postcards didn't really get, we probably sent out close to 500-ish postcards, like very, very targeted. And again, we have a relatively limited budget to work with for this particular, outside investor involvement and so forth. So it's not like we can just throw more budget at it. Internally, I mean, we could, but it would just disturb the bookkeeping a bit more, which is not something we want to entertain at this moment here. So, I'm trying to be very, very mindful about our limited dollars to work with and only do super targeted stuff. And, we only got like less than 10 clicks on, or, scans of our QR code, visits to the website from our postcard outreach, which again, just kind of speaks to the market of just, it's just slow and slow, slow, slow. So, we're doing what we can. I'm going to try it again, but, just wanted to share some tactics, some tips on, our approach here and how we were thinking about it. If you have other suggestions, maybe, you can mention something in the comments, or, cold calls. Text not as much my specialty here, so I'm always open to suggestions. But, keeping people on the line, though, at least, which I think, again, just speed and getting right to the point is always going to be helpful. So hopefully this one is of help to you all. Serious Land Capital for any of your funding needs. Again, $50K minimum buy price. And Daily Diligence Facebook group did several pretty interesting deals yesterday, if you want to check out the replay. And landpricer.ai for the most reliable land pricing tool on the market. With that in mind, take care, subscribe and share. Talk to you next time. Bye.